Hi everyone. So as we get started talking about communication, we're going to break it down to the most simplest form with starting to talk about language. So what are the building blocks of language, and how is this important for the idea of communication? Obviously, this module we're talking a lot about verbal and nonverbal communication. So this stuff that I'm going to talk about right here is going on more of the verbal side. So let's start with what the difference is. So the word verbal is defined as a digital code. So when we're thinking about digital versus analog, I've used these pictures below that kind of demonstrate, how in the scientific term it is sent. You can see a digital signal is more cut and dry, where an analog signal kind of makes an archy, swirly motion. So this image is really just to help you remember that a digital code requires less power than analog, whereas a nonverbal requires more power. It takes more power to make those up and down archy motions. When we're using verbal communication, there's less interpretation. It's more straightforward. If I say, wow, I really like that present that you gave me, hearing just the verbal, it tells you exactly what I'm feeling. When you take your nonverbal into it, I can say that same exact sentence, and I'm going to go back to the sentence a lot of, wow, I really like that present you gave me. But if my face has a kind of disgusted look on it, that's going to give it more open to interpretation to whether what I said is true or not. The triangle of meaning. So your book talks a lot about this, and everything I kind of go over in this screencast, it's important, but it's really important just for you to have a background knowledge on this, not necessarily, I don't want you to necessarily memorize it. I want you to know how this is helpful and how this is useful as we move on. So the triangle of meaning really demonstrates the differences between symbol, thought, and reference. So words are just symbols that represent ideas, people, and places and concepts. So the symbol in the bottom left corner of that triangle is dog, spelled D-O-G, and it is that word or mental image. Until we put meaning behind that, that symbol means nothing. So the thought is, I want to get a dog. The thought is your personal feelings about the thing that we're talking about. And in this case, that thing is a dog. The referent is going to be that actual thing. So an actual dog, no matter what kind of dog it is, that picture of the actual dog is what the referent is. Without those three things, symbol, thought, and referent, we don't have meaning. We could have just the words written down, and we'll talk about this in the next slide. Those words don't mean anything until that symbol doesn't mean anything until we put thought and a referent behind it. So symbols, breaking that down a little bit more. Symbols are truly arbitrary, abstract, intentional, uniquely human, and culturally bound. What that means is until you put the thought and the referent behind the symbol, it means nothing. For example, we know what that big blue word in the middle means. The symbol is the letters H-E-L-L-O. That means hello. We might associate as a referent waving with that, but we've created that meaning behind it. The symbols in the upper left-hand corner in red, to us, those symbols are arbitrary, they're abstract, uniquely human, and culturally bound because we don't really know what the meaning is behind that symbol because we don't have a referent for it, we don't have a thought behind it. To us, that's truly symbols. But to someone who speaks that language, it's very bound in their cultural, so they know what that means just as much as we know what the word hello means and how we analyze that. So I want to talk a little bit about the meaning to symbols and ideas of grammar. Again, we're talking about language right now in this screencast. So these are just some basics that kind of go into that. So the first one is phonemes, and this is the sound of language. There's actually people who study these. These are each kind of like sections of linguistics that people study, but basically what you need to know, it's the difference between words. So bat, cat, mat, and sat, they all have that AT, but the different sounds between bat and cat with the B and the C, that gives it a different idea, a different symbol, and a different referent. The second one is morphemes. Morphemes is the smallest meaning in a language. So it's basically the base word. So when you look something up in a dictionary, you find the morpheme of the word. For example, if you look up the word eat in a dictionary, you'll find that word. What you won't find is eating, eats, ate, because they're all different tenses and it's not the most pure form of the word. So morphemes is really just that small unit of meaning in a language. And semantics is the logical meaning of words. Again, these are all really big parts of linguistic. For our purposes, I really just want you to have an understanding of the differences between language and all that kind of goes into communication. All right. So out of this screencast, this is probably, I would say, the most important thing I want you to focus on. Same words, but different meanings. We have what is called a connotative meaning and a denotative meaning. I'm going to start with a denotative meaning. And this is kind of how I always remember it. So denotative starts with a D. That D is for dictionary. It is the actual definition of a word. So if I look up the word pig in a dictionary, I'm going to find a definition that says something about a pink farm animal that lives in the mud. It's going to be referring to that picture down there. A connotative meaning is the informal meaning of a word associated with feelings and personal experiences. I might be saying, wow, what a pig, talking to someone who's making a mess at the dinner table, like that picture down there. The important thing about this is not everyone shares the same connotative meaning because it's an informal meaning of the word and it has to do with your feelings and personal experiences. So in our speeches and in professional writing, we want to use more of the denotative meaning as words because we don't want someone to misinterpret what we are saying. And it can be a lot easier to misinterpret a connotative meaning of a word than a denotative meaning of a word. All right, that is all I have for this. As always, if you have any questions, let me know on the discussion board for this module.